KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning. Out to our friend Lars Larson, joins us from the Lars Larson Show, larslarson.com. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you today?
Not bad. I've got to find out, before we talk about these big national stories, that you were involved in quite a bit of a controversy of your own in the Portland area.
Just a bit. Here's what happened. A couple of months ago, the students at Portland State University, the campus Republicans, and believe me, campus Republicans are pretty rare on college campuses these days, and especially rare in a place like Portland, Oregon, which is a very blue city. They reached out to me. Excuse me, Kevin. They reached out to me and said, would you come and speak to our group and maybe do your radio show from the campus? I said, I'd be happy to. They said, we're trying to, mark Second Amendment Week at PSU. And I was pleasantly surprised to find out there were some Republicans at PSU among the students, probably not too many among the faculty, and that they wanted to mark Second Amendment Week. And I'm a Second Amendment supporter. So I said, sure, we'll take care of the technical costs and the technical arrangements. They scheduled a room. They put out 500 flyers. They did a certain amount of advertising. We were supposed to do that broadcast 1 week ago today. About 8 days before the broadcast, I heard from the campus police chief, who has never even returned my calls in the past, but he called me and said, are you going to be carrying a gun that day? And I said, I'll be following the law, chief. And the law in Oregon, it may be different, and I don't know the particulars in Idaho, but in Oregon, we have, strangely for a very blue state like Oregon, one of the most liberal, liberal in the good way, liberal concealed carry laws
right.
in America. I can carry and do carry when I'm invited to go to a high school to give a speech. I can carry and do carry when I go to a college campus. I can carry in a church. I can carry in a bar. I can carry just about anywhere except federal buildings. That would include the post office. And I can't carry in a courthouse. And those are reasonable, I guess. So we were going to do the broadcast. The chief became aware of it. And I said, well, chief, we've had a tough time getting answers from you. And he says, well, not from me. I'm relatively new, but I'll be glad to answer your questions anytime you want. I said, great, I've got a question for you, because I knew what the answer was, and it's always smart to ask questions if you know the answer. Chief, what is the official policy of the PSU campus police department with regard to citizens who are not students and not faculty carrying on campus? And you know what he said? He said, you're going to have to call our lawyer. And I said, Chief, you just promised to answer a question. It's right in your lane. What is the policy? Now, I knew that the state law says the campus is forbidden by the legislature almost 30 years ago, 1989, to make any rules with regard to possession of guns. Now, the way they get away with going after students and faculty is they say, oh, yeah, you have a right to carry a gun, but if you do, we'll kick you out of school if you're a student. We'll fire you if you're an employee. So that's the way they treat the civil right, which is in the federal Constitution. There's an even stronger version of the Second Amendment in the Oregon State Constitution. And then, of course, there's the state statute, which, by the way, was passed at a time when the Speaker of the House was a Democrat and the Senate President was a Democrat, and Democrats were in the majority. They passed a law that you can carry, and nobody else is allowed to write rules unless the legislature gives them authority, which they have not. Well, the university didn't like the idea of me doing the broadcast, and they said, we demand that by a week ago Friday, so not last Friday, the previous Friday, their lawyer sent me a letter. I put it up on social media, in which she demanded that I make a public written declaration that I would not carry a gun. Now, to me, Kevin, people forget. When we talk civil rights these days, many people think you're talking about who you have sex with, or what color your skin is, or where you like to go to church or not go to church, or synagogue or mosque. And they think civil rights, that's about skin color and sex and things like that. One of the civil rights we have as American citizens is to carry a gun. One of the rights we have as Oregon residents is a state constitutional right to carry a gun. One of the statutory rights we have. So I pretty well got the law on my side. And the college demanded that I give up, forfeit that right. To me, it would be like saying to a Muslim, you can come to campus and talk, but leave your Quran at home. Leave your niqab, your face covering, at home. If you're a Christian, leave that cross jewelry at home. If you're Jewish, leave your kippah, your hat, your skull cap at home. Leave the one thing at home that symbolizes that civil right. And in the case of a gun, leave yourself defenseless. Now, I might point out this horrific set of murders in Pittsburgh, PA over the weekend was committed in a gun-free zone, a place where no one had the ability to respond to a killer, Robert Bowers, who walked in. John Lott of the Crime Prevention Research Center, I'm on the board of directors, so I do have a bias in favor of John, but John's an economist. He will tell you that when he's looked over 30 years of public shootings, he's found that 98% of them happen in gun-free zones. Gun-free zones are one of the most dangerous places you can be. And PSU, despite the state law, has sought to make the PSU campus a gun-free zone. Now, I'm sure there are people listening to your show right now saying, well, why would you want to have a gun on campus? You know what I'd suggest? Ask the survivors from Virginia Tech why you'd want to have a gun on campus. Ask them. And you know what I'm talking about is the horrible murders that happened at UVA, where people were murdered because no citizen, no law-abiding citizen had the ability to respond to the Virginia Tech, I should say, the Virginia Tech shooting. And as a result, Sun Wee Cho murdered a lot of people whose lives might have been saved if one adult student or one faculty member or one staff, if the janitor on campus had had a pistol and he heard somebody coming, because most of these killers, and I'd like to see them called killers instead of shooters. I went to the range a week ago with a friend on a week ago Saturday. When I was at the range, Kevin, I was a shooter, but I'm not a killer. And there's a difference. A shooter shoots bullets at targets, at animals, at a number of things. A killer is someone who shoots and kills people. That's what Robert Bowers did this weekend. So the end result was that we didn't have the broadcast. And in fact, the students were told by the university, if you decide to have this guy on campus, this citizen, me, on campus, we will strip your club of its funding, which comes from student incidental fees. I'm sure the same thing is true at Boise State and University of Boise, that student clubs are funded with the money that students have paid through their incidental fees. And they're supposed to do it in a relatively agnostic way. That is, the university is not supposed to say, well, we like your club, so we'll fund it, but we don't like those guys or gals, so we're not going to fund it. But they were told they'd be stripped of funding. They were told their club might lose its franchise, its sanction from the university to exist, that individual students who were leaders of the group, and I have this in writing from the emails that were sent to these students saying, we may put you up in front of a disciplinary committee if you choose to have this broadcast. So for engaging in an act of free speech, inviting somebody to speak, something that happens in every city and town in America. There are churches who invite people to speak. There are city councils that invite people to speak. There are social groups, the Rotary Club. I've been invited to a bunch of Rotary Clubs over the years to give a speech. For engaging in free speech in a way that bothers the university but which they have no legal authority to respond to by forbidding me to go on campus. So that we will punish you for engaging in free speech. I think that's wrong. And I think most reasonable people, whether they agree with me or not, would say you should punish a bunch of students, threaten to kick them out of school, threaten to take away their club for that. And so it makes me angry. Well, but I respond to things that make me angry with rational, legal, lawful, constitutional responses, not with some kind of violence. So I said to my producer, let's go up to the campus. Last week we had a pretty busy week with a lot of other things going on. And because I come in here, as you know, about every 6 o'clock local time every day, and I usually get out of here about 6 o'clock local time every single night. And I've been doing that for, 20 years. I work 6 to 6 every day, and my wife is very understanding. So I said, let's go up and do a Facebook live stream. They can't stop me from doing that. So we went up to campus, which is only 6 blocks away, and we walked into the Smith Memorial Union, which is the student union. We picked a good place that had a backdrop so people could say, Lars isn't just sitting in his studio, he's at the campus. And I sat there for 7 minutes and explained the story I just told you. And I said, I am carrying a gun right now, and I'm doing it legally and lawfully. under the laws of the state. And this is what the university has done to me. Kevin, I checked this morning. As of this morning, the day we did the broadcast, the Facebook live stream, which is a powerful tool that ought to be used by all Americans, and it's within the reach of anybody with internet access and a smartphone. We did the Facebook live stream. It lasted 7 minutes. By that night, we had 90,000 people who'd seen it. By Friday night, we had 175,000 who'd seen it. Today, this morning, it's at about 310,000 people have seen that stream, and the numbers are still growing. Now, is that to my credit? No. I think people are intrigued and frightened at the idea that a state institution funded by the taxpayers, a state university, would say, we don't care what the law is, we will find a way to get you. And in this case, not just me, but the students. The university can't do anything to me. And the police didn't show up when we were doing the broadcast. And I haven't heard from the university since. I think they know that they're on the losing end of this one. So that's a long explanation to your short question, but I hope it tells you why Americans should be bothered. You should be bothered anytime someone is denied free speech, even if you disagree with the person. And I hold to that rule. I give people First Amendment Friday every week. And in fact, every day of the week, if somebody calls up and says, Lars is wrong, and I'm sure I'll get at least a few people today as we talk about the news of the Northwest on the show and the news of the country, I'll get some people who say you're wrong. And I say, great, make your argument. And then let me ask you a few questions. And usually if I can ask questions and if people will answer, many times people try to avoid the answers because they realize this is something that is completely justified. That if more places had concealed carry, if more people carried a gun, you'd have fewer incidents like what happened at that synagogue in Pittsburgh over the weekend.
Our great friend Lars Larson joining us, LarsLarson.com, Lars Larson Show. Lars, we've got about 3 minutes left. Your thoughts on people clamoring now for gun control and people blaming the president for what happened in Pittsburgh?
Gun control would not have done a single thing about the murders in Pittsburgh. And I will tell you that I know there are people who want to blame Donald Trump because some crazy anti-Semite who said he wanted nothing to do with Donald Trump, didn't vote for him, said he wouldn't literally touch a Make America Great Again hat, that symbolically he dislikes the president so much because he sees the president as someone who is somehow allied with Jewish people. As you know, I've done my show from Israel 5 different times over the last 20 years, and I love that country as much as I love my own country. I'm very proud of what they've been able to do there. But to try to paint the actions of an anti-Semite murderer like Robert Bowers as somehow connected to Donald Trump, who has a Jewish daughter, Ivanka. He has a Jewish son-in-law, Jared Kushner. He has Jewish grandchildren. He's the president who, after every other president in modern American history, promised to move the U.S. Embassy to the real capital of Israel, which is Jerusalem. Every other president, including Obama, promised to do it. Not one of them did it. Donald Trump just said, look, we're doing it. And we're not waiting for a billion-dollar embassy, not waiting 10 years on this. It's happening now. And everybody who was on the left who hates Donald Trump said, if you do that, there'll be trouble. Well, guess what? U.S. Embassy is in Jerusalem. And if you say, well, how important is that? Think how symbolic how much the way we communicate to each other and as a country is about symbolism. Because we say if the governor is going to say something important in Idaho, he says it maybe from the state capitol or from the steps of a city hall or wherever it is, because that symbolism is important. We even say, and there are presidents who are criticized saying, well, there was a massive flood or something terrible happened. Will the president go there? Now, we all know the president can act to help people in our country who've had something terrible happen, but we think it's important to go to the place and to be there and to show the flag. If something terrible happened at your company, I would expect your company's general manager of the radio station to say, we're going to call a meeting and I'll speak. He doesn't send an email. He doesn't put a note on the bulletin board. He comes down and talks to people. Now, this president moved the embassy to Jerusalem, which had been a terribly contentious issue for decades. and no other president had the guts. Now, that's the man you're going to blame for the actions of an anti-Semite who apparently didn't like Donald Trump at all, to the point where he said, I won't even touch a MAGA hat? Come on. And the actions of the bomber, the man who sent these bombs to all those people last week, the mainstream media keeps saying that the bomber sent bombs to people who've been critical of Donald Trump. What does that have to do with it? They were all Democrats. They're all top-level Democrats. But when Steve Scalise, the congressman from Louisiana, was shot, did you hear, and I went back and looked at the coverage, did you hear them saying this man shot Republicans? He was a Bernie Sanders supporter, but he shot Republicans and deliberately targeted Republicans. Did we hear him say this is a man who's a Democrat, who's a supporter of Democrat policies? No. They in fact, the Washington Post on its front page, I went back and looked up the front page and tweeted it out this weekend. The front page, it's tough to even find the political background of the man who shot Steve Scalise and all those other people on that baseball field. But boy, in the case of Cesar Sayoc, he's attacking people who are critical of Donald Trump. Well, hold on. Why are you tying this to the president? What does the president have to do with this? The side that has been invoking violence and chaos is the Democrats. The woman who still, as of this morning, says she wants to run for president again, Hillary Clinton, said you will get civility back when you give us power back. That's a threat to say we will continue to engage and we will encourage people to engage in violent activities until you give us power back. Eric Holder, the former attorney general, the first and only attorney general to have been found in contempt of Congress, comes out and says when they go low, we kick them. Barack Obama, who once said when they bring a knife, we bring a gun. And you're going to tell me it's Donald Trump and conservatives in this country who are the violent ones? We protect against violence. We believe in following the law. And, Kevin, what I think you're seeing now is that Democrats who just 6 months ago were saying you're going to see a big blue wave in November have now stopped that talk altogether, because I think they know a week from tomorrow, Americans are not going to give them anything. They may actually take some seats in Congress away from the Democrats. And the Democrats they're panicked. They've seen the Supreme Court go to a solid 5-4 majority, and they know that if they don't get the chance to try to impeach Donald Trump by winning the House of Representatives, that they are going to see more. They're probably going to see a third Supreme Court pick for Donald Trump. And that will mean that for the rest of your lifetime and my lifetime, you're a younger man than me, Kevin. You and I know each other well. But we're going to see a conservative Supreme Court for the rest of our lives. My little granddaughter, who I visited with this weekend, she's 2.5 years old. She's a little over 3 feet tall. She's going to be a tall girl when she gets to be an adult. She will have a conservative Supreme Court for bare minimum till she's in her 50s, in all likelihood. And this has the Democrats panicked. So the only thing they can fall back on is let's threaten people. Let's go out and threaten to do violence, threaten incivility, as Hillary Clinton puts it. She understands what she's doing. She's encouraging people to keep engaging in outrageous activities until they get power back. Is that the way that we win political power in this country? Is say, if you don't give it to us, we will continue to encourage acts of violence and chaos in your country? That's not my America. Maybe Hillary Clinton's America or Eric Holder's America or Maxine Waters' America. It ain't my America.
Lars, we could go on and on. We can't wait to hear you tonight at 6. We always appreciate you, brother.
You got to get me up there to do a broadcast from Boise, all right?
I'm working on it, Lars.
You take care, buddy.
Take care. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Pro-Life, hang on. Your reaction to Lars Larson next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. We go to Pro-Life. Good morning, Pro-Life.
Yeah, good morning. You know, I like Lars Larson. He's one of the very few radio commentators that are, as an activist, you know, that was pretty good when he went to the university and took his gun there and had a little interview on the internet. But anyway, back there in Pittsburgh, those Jewish people are really pretty messed up because lots of them are so liberal that they think that President Trump might have caused their demise. And I just can't believe that they get that fooled like that, but it's the media that's doing all of this, and So I think President Trump needs to turn up the heat on the media. You know, everybody's saying, well, you ought to tone it down. But no, we need to turn it up on the media until they can't take it anymore. And everybody knows that they're a big, fake, crooked outfit. And I have another comment about the debates. I watched the Fulcher and his opponent. I was trying to think of her name.
I know, you can't even think of her
O'Neill.
name personally. She's not even that relevant.
Christina O'Neill. And her English is not that good. I mean, her accent is so strong that you can't understand what she's saying. And that is not good for the Democrats to put that kind of a candidate there. And then our media, they just never ask any questions about morals. And you know, they're going to have the superintendent debate tonight, I guess it is, and they won't have, none of the questions will have to do, what are you going to do to suppress sexual immorality in the schools?
Now, hold on. Can you hang on? Because I do
Yeah.
want to get back to that. Thank you, Pro-Life. Coming up next, we'll go to the White House, then more of debate preview. And Paulette Jordan says the media, well, they're all Republicans. I'll give you the details next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
Out to the White House, from your house to the White House on KIDO Talk Radio. John Decker joins us. John, good morning.
Hey, good morning to you. How are you doing today, Kevin?
Not bad. Certainly a troubling weekend for the country and for the administration, trying to make sense of the arrest of two suspects that, again, has the world's attention.
Well, that's right, and it's certainly gotten the president's attention. The president speaking about it at a campaign rally over the weekend, also tweeting about it. I think he got the right tone. It's just so horrific and tragic what happened at that synagogue in Pittsburgh over the weekend, and you just have to, scratch your head with what's wrong with people. It's just kind of depressing in a way. The president tweeting about it over the weekend and also today. The president saying that there is great anger in our country caused in part by inaccurate and even fraudulent reporting of the news. Then he went on to tweet, the fake news media, what he called the true enemy of the people, must stop the open and obvious hostility and report the news accurately and fairly. And even the president's senior counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, she spoke on Fox News today. She called for unity, and she, really called out, the sort of the rhetoric that's out there right now in America that's being so problematic, that leads to some of the things that we're seeing. But let's not just blame it on that. This is the act of a sick individual. No one, forced him to do what he did at that Pittsburgh synagogue.
John Decker is joining us from Fox News Radio, exclusively on KIDO Talk Radio. John, as someone like you familiar with Western Pennsylvania, I was listening to Bill Cower yesterday describe the people there, saying they're burgers, they're hearty, they're yinzers. Those folks, like many Americans, are very resilient, particularly in Squirrel Hill.
Well, that's right. I am familiar with Pennsylvania, having worked for Senator John Hines, who represented the state for many years, and these people are just salt of the earth, and the same thing can be said for those victims. You saw the ages. I mean, these are people that were just simply in a place of worship, and no one deserves anything like that. And the president said as much, and called for a toning down of the rhetoric, called for unity, and hopefully we see some of that. We see some of that over the course of time. We're 8 days away from the midterms. The president will be hitting the road quite a bit this week, Kevin. He's going to be in Fort Myers, Florida on Wednesday, Columbia, Missouri on Thursday, Huntington, West Virginia on Friday, and then back to Florida. He'll be in Pensacola, Florida, the Panhandle of Florida on Saturday. And there may be some additional stops that are added to the president's trip schedule over the course of the week.
John Decker, we appreciate your insight, and our thoughts and prayers certainly go out to the people of Western Pennsylvania today and every day.
That's right. Thanks a lot, Kevin. You have a great day, and we'll talk real soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you, John. Bye-bye. Back to, before we get back to pro-life, this is something we started the program with, and thanks to the Idaho Republican Party for getting this. Paulette Jordan is now mad at the media.
Follow us on Facebook. You can go to our Instagram page or Twitter, and we put a lot of what we're doing out there for people to see. But we don't have a lot of local media on our side. A lot of them are Republican owned. So their media will go towards who they think are paying attention. And they think Republican older men are paying attention, not the rest of us. So they're not writing in our favor, which means we have to work harder.
Somebody should really help her on her syntax. With all due respect, and again, my own personal opinion, I don't know which is more ridiculous, Paulette Jordan saying that statement or people that actually believe it, that Republican men, she forgot to put in old white men, or she did say old, but not, we talk about dog whistles and code. That's right, because the Republicans join, they own Channel 7, they own Channel 2, they own KIDO Talk Radio. No, the Republicans, it's so absurd. The Republicans don't own anything. These are all public companies. If you want to buy shares in these companies, they're listed on the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ or the Dow or whatever. I'm sure Dave Petzo could break it all down for you. But to say that the media is controlled by Republicans, the media, as if it's the media's responsibility to be on her side, again, shows me that this is going to be, heck, it might even be 75-25, Brad Little. Can anybody besides someone who is, so very, very blue when it comes to their political beliefs, give me a reason to vote for Paulette Jordan? Oh, I'm anti-Brad Little. Okay. What's the reason to vote for her? As I said to somebody in the 6 o'clock hour, there was an opportunity. There was a huge opportunity, and state Democrats will be kicking themselves in the derriere for not electing A.J. Belukoff to run against her. But again, so absurd. It's gotten so bad that it's almost like every other election. Like, I don't know who's running against Mike Simpson. Do they really matter? Who's running against Russ Fulcher? It's so irrelevant. And of course, what's news nationally isn't what news is locally. Locally, it's not a lot of buzz, but you can get on CNN and say I'm the first this, then that. But can you really believe that somebody would say that? Could you imagine if a Republican said that? Amazing. Back to you, Pro-Life. So, Pro-Life, we were talking about the debates. I have to say, as I think it was you and me and perhaps Tea Party Bob that were the only ones watching that Channel 7 debate. Nothing against Channel 7, but those debates are snoozers. I was amazed that they weren't asking questions specifically about what Congress does. Instead they asked about the dams or the Wilkes brothers buying property, all these state issues. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what would you do? Would you vote for war with North Korea? Would you vote for this? And it was just like, it was almost like it was a governor's debate during the Russ Fulcher debate the other night. And I'm thinking to myself, Congress deals with budgets and this and that. Now, they did have some good ones about the illegals and such, but that was really it. It was all, I'm like, are you going to dam the dams? Well, the congressman doesn't dam the dams.
Yeah, I noticed that. I thought the questions were very odd, and I thought that they would ask something about having to do with, I know what question I would have asked. I would have asked, transsexuals in the military, homosexuals in the military. They had nothing like that.
You've asked that question to everybody here.
Yeah, well, and I mean, how about gay marriage, and how about personhood at fertilization? How about baby murder? How about that? That would be a question. That's the number one question all the time. I mean, there's some third to half of all of our babies get killed in the United States and maybe in the whole world through birth control pills, surgical abortions. It's terrible. And so if we're not going to deal with that question, we're in big trouble, and they don't want to ever mention that.
Well, we mentioned that.
But, a nation can't survive, a culture can't survive, if their education system allows sexual immorality, foul language, sick clothing, and things like that. And do you think in the debate tonight they're going to ask the superintendent of school candidates any questions having to do with that? I don't think they are.
I got to say this about the superintendent of schools. The Democratic opponent, she tries very hard, a little too hard. But I gotta believe, and they're running negative ads against Sherry Ibarra right now. But with a little bit more seasoning, maybe 4 years from now, whatever. But she's trying too hard, and what's the? Here's the deal. What's the advantage of putting a Democrat in? Here's the message to everybody, whether it's lieutenant governor, whether it's and look, I'm a conservative, but I'm just being. What's the advantage of having a Democrat hold public office in Idaho? They're all Republicans. Well, how about diversity? Well, how about this? There is no advantage. There is literally no advantage.
Yeah, I know, because there's very little difference between the parties. And you'll notice that the Democrats aren't even putting the donkey on any of their advertising. They want to play like they're not Democrats. They want to be like the Love Party or the Nobody Party. You know what I'm saying?
The Know Nothing Party. Thank you, Pro-Life.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you.
All right. The return of the publisher of the Gem State Patriot, Tea Party Bob, on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir.
You can't get over these boring debates, can we? They just get worse and worse all the time.
It sounded more like a governor's debate than a congressional debate on Friday night. I will say that.
It was really kind of a joke. I want to once again talk about the ultimate soft targets that exist in our country and why we don't protect ourselves and our neighbors. There are always going to be evil people in this world that want to do harm to others, and it's up to the citizens to protect ourselves and our neighbors from these evil people. Putting up signs in front of schools saying this is a gun-free zone is not going to deter anyone from doing any evil deed by entering our schools armed to the teeth, looking to slaughter the innocent who have no means to protect themselves. We have seen little or no progress in putting into effect reasonable means to deter these perpetrators of death. Yet each time there's another event, everyone is up in arms about guns. It is no different for people gathering in our churches and synagogues, where we don't expect to find violence, but just the love of God. Unfortunately, those who wish to do us harm see these gathering places as soft targets, where an armed perpetrator can enter these facilities at will, wreak havoc upon the unsuspecting people who have gathered in peace to practice their freedom of religion. If we don't protect ourselves from these evil souls, that's our fault. It's not theirs. I realize that may seem somewhat crass to think about this, but the truth is we put alarms on our homes, we put alarms on our cars, we lock up our precious possessions, but we fail to protect the most precious of all our possessions, our lives. Why is it that we protect everything but ourselves in places where we are the most vulnerable? About 6 months ago, Kevin, I told your radio audience that our church had instituted a security patrol during our church services and how we took the time to actually train the people who do these patrols. Most of the parishioners don't realize that we have these patrols, nor is there a need for them to know it. But it is a great comfort to me, and should be to all who attend the church, that we've taken this action to protect those who are gathering in peace for a religious service. It is up to us as citizens in this great country to take advantage of our God-given rights afforded to us by the Constitution, because if we don't, we will continue to see these slaughters take place like the one this weekend by sick, evil perpetrators. It's time for the people of this country to wake up and understand that we are not always safe, and we must protect ourselves, our families, and our neighbors, and our Second Amendment rights, because we already know that the government has been a pitiful failure in many cases in defending us from these horrible crimes. I don't know what else to say, Kevin. I just thank you for the time this morning, and thanks for your show, my friend.
Thank you, Tea Party Bob. Take care.
Have a good day.
You too. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's go to Tess in Boise, visiting once again. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Yes, good morning. Well, so I just want to say, I always vote for the person, and I'm a real fact checker. And here's my biggest concerns is that Ms. Jordan, when I fact checked her expenditures and her monetary donations, one of the things you see is that people you vote for, you want to make sure they have the same interests as you do. So I see on her filings that her biggest contributions are from about 20 Indian casinos. And she is a board member of the National Indian Gaming Association. She's been on there for years. Those casinos negotiated so 18-year-olds could gamble in there. And I don't know what to tell you about Prop 1, but I know that down here at the fairgrounds they serve liquor, so you have to be 21. It's not about getting kids into gaming sites. But I do want to tell you that, a lot of people get an opportunity to have relationships with different candidates. And I want to tell you this, when they had the landslide at Elk City, I drove down to the lieutenant governor's office, and I want to tell you for about 18 months, I have bent their ear. I have never been booted out of the office, asked to leave. I have been helped consistently. They've done everything that they could, and they made no fear-based decisions. They were very steady. They were very grounded, and I really appreciated that. So they helped a lot. So that tells me a lot about the individual. And I only see in-state contributions on Mr. Little's donations to his campaign by the hundreds versus Ms. Jordan's outside, out-of-state campaigns. And I see that he still has my interest, which is education, farming, timber, agricultural, and controlled growth. So I appreciate that. So here's a thank you very much to the Lieutenant Governor's office and to his staff, who has been over backwards, not only for that, for some other issues. And how nice. I made no appointments. I just simply drove to Boise, and I walked into their office. I just walked into their office. I didn't have to ask for any special time. So they were there. So thank you, and I appreciate that.
Tess, thank you. You have a great day.
Mm-hmm.
Liberal Steve joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Liberal Steve.
Good morning, people of Idaho. And good morning, Kevin Miller. I just would like to say, as far as these shootings have been going on for years now, and the insanity and the cars driving into people, when we lose our soul, I believe we lose our heart. Or it could be the other way around. We lose our heart, and then we lose our soul, and then the last thing to go is our mind. And all good people, all good Idahoans, all good Kevin Miller listeners and people of the world know that this has nothing to do with left or right. It has only to do with the loss of a heart and a soul and a mind. Because look at your neighbor, neighbor, look at that neighbor, neighbor, look at that neighbor. 99.99999 of us never let it get that far to where we lose our soul, our heart, and our mind. And a vote for Paulette Jordan will be a vote to keep our souls, hearts, and minds in good places here in the state of Idaho. And she does have thousands and thousands of little people donators.
Well, and they're all from out of state. Here, let's have you respond to this.
You can follow us on Facebook. You can go to our Instagram page or Twitter, and we put a lot of what we're doing out there for people to see. But we don't have a lot of local media on our side. A lot of them are Republican-owned. So their media will go towards who they think are paying attention.
Now, that's the most ridiculous statement I've heard anyone say in a contested race.
Kevin, that's not a ridiculous statement, and you know that it's not a ridiculous statement. I don't have cable, so I watch all the local channels, and I know who's who as far as who's Republican.
Right, they're all publicly owned. They're all publicly owned.
Yeah. And so that's why the governor and his wife are on advertising to keep Prop 1.
I'll respond to that. I have to run, sir, but thank you.
Hey, Kevin, what's going on Sunday?
I'll tell you in a minute. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you, Larry. Coming up Sunday, we urge you all to meet us at the State House. We'll begin at noon to have a Red Tsunami rally. That's right. So many conservatives are coming in to speak about why it's important to vote on Tuesday. We'll be there as well. Very blessed to be a part of it. We'll have more coming up for you on KIDOTalkRadio.com. And back to Liberal Steve's point about the governor and the first lady being on TV. Those are paid ads by proponents of Prop 1. Kevin Miller in the morning. Glenn Beck is next. Don't go anywhere. Glenn will have his usual award-winning and stimulating commentary. Ray Amaya, great job. Appreciate everybody. And thank you for starting your day on the right side with us, where we just want you to be heard. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.